The dark visitor and the prison of the mind. Welcome back to Ghost Vibes. Every human being has a deepest, most primal fear, the fear of being conscious yet utterly powerless. This fear is given a terrifying, tangible form in one of the most widespread and chilling paranormal experiences known to humanity: sleep paralysis. This is not simply a bad dream or a fleeting moment of confusion. It is a profound state of mind where the brain is fully awake and hyper-alert, but the body remains asleep, locked down by an involuntary survival mechanism. This temporary physiological glitch plunges the victim into a silent, personal hell, confined to the prison of their own mind, while a palpable, often terrifying sense of malevolent presence fills the room. The classic sleep paralysis experience is universal, transcending culture, history, and geography. It typically occurs during the hypnopompic, waking up, or less commonly the hypnagogic, falling asleep transition, when the brain is moving rapidly between the REM sleep phase and full wakefulness. During REM sleep, when dreaming is most vivid, the brain's pons region releases inhibitory neurotransmitters, GABA and glycine, that effectively paralyze the major voluntary muscles of the body. This protective mechanism, known as atonia, prevents us from physically acting out our dreams, keeping us safe. In sleep paralysis, the conscious mind wakes up prematurely, before the atonia mechanism has been fully switched off. The result is a conscious, terrified mind trapped in an utterly paralyzed body. The crushing inability to move a limb, open the eyes fully, speak, or cry for help creates an immediate, overwhelming panic, which the brain, desperately seeking a rational explanation for the physical terror, then attempts to visualize. This core physiological terror is immediately magnified by what the victim perceives during the hallucination phase. This is the exact point where science meets ancient folklore and the supernatural takes hold. The most common and terrifying hallucination is the sense of an intruder, or the night hag. Victims worldwide consistently report seeing a dark, shadowy figure, often humanoid, sometimes a small, grotesque old woman, a demonic shape, or simply a mass of black energy, standing over them, kneeling by the bed, or most terrifyingly, sitting directly on their chest. This entity is invariably described as non-human, ancient, and undeniably evil, radiating a palpable feeling of dread, hostility, and a specific, suffocating intent. The visual is frequently accompanied by intense auditory hallucinations, hissing whispers, heavy breathing right next to the ear, loud static, buzzing, or an unnerving, deafening silence that heightens the sense of isolation. The pressure and weight felt on the chest is known in ancient lore as the attack of the incubus, male entity, or succubus, female entity, and it is the direct physical manifestation of the victim's panicked struggle to breathe against a paralyzed diaphragm and chest muscles. The psychological and spiritual impact of this event is profound. For the victim experiencing it, the entire episode is perceived as 100% real. It is not categorized by the brain as a dream. The fear is genuine, and the visual memory of the shadow is etched into the deepest part of the mind. In the moments of terror, the brain's amygdala, the fear center, goes into catastrophic overdrive, flooding the system with adrenaline and other stress chemicals that intensify the panic and the sense of impending doom. This intense subjective reality explains why, for millennia, cultures worldwide, from Newfoundland to Nigeria to Japan, have interpreted this neurochemical glitch not as a benign sleep disorder, but as a genuine malignant spiritual attack. It is a shared, terrifying human experience that acts as a window into our deepest ancestral fears, confirming the existence of a dark, malevolent visitor that only reveals itself when we are most helpless and vulnerable. The enduring, chilling mystery is not if the paralysis is real, but why the human brain, across vastly different cultures and without contact, chooses to project the exact same terrifying figure, the shadowy man or the old hag, in the specific, vulnerable state. Across cultures, the global shadow, the uniformity of the sleep paralysis experience, the sense of crushing weight, the inability to move, and the omnipresent shadowy intruder, is perhaps the most compelling and chilling piece of the mystery. If this phenomenon were purely random or purely cultural, the hallucinations should vary wildly. Instead, the core elements are a near-perfect match across continents and epochs. This global consistency suggests that the human brain, when caught between sleep and wakefulness, is wired to produce a highly specific, primal fear narrative that bypasses learned cultural biases. It is a shared ancestral fear given concrete visual form. Across the globe, every major culture has a specific named entity for the sleep paralysis intruder, yet their descriptions are functionally identical to the shadowy figure described by a modern American or Japanese student. In Newfoundland, Canada, the entity is simply called the Old Hag, Old Witch, who flies in through the window and sits on the sleeper's chest, leaving them with an agony of exhaustion. The term hag-ridden was historically used to describe someone who had suffered this ordeal. This terminology directly links the modern experience to centuries of Western European folklore, where witches and malevolent spirits were believed to target sleepers. The concept is so ingrained that the term sleep paralysis itself is a modern clinical replacement for the ancient folkloric explanation. Moving east, the experience finds its mirror image. In Brazil, the entity is known as the pisadeira, the trampler. She is described as a gruesome, bony-fingered woman with long, dirty fingernails and a frightful laugh, who lurks on the roofs, waiting for victims who sleep on their backs with full stomachs. When she strikes, she tramples the victim's chest, leaving them paralyzed and breathless. In Mexico, the phenomenon is called subirse el muerto, the dead man climbing on you. This entity is a deceased relative or an ancient spirit that uses the sleeper's body as a temporary vessel, or simply seeks to crush the life out of them. The cultural belief often dictates specific ritualistic actions to prevent the attack, such as sleeping with a Bible under the pillow or sleeping facing a certain direction. The entities become even more specific and terrifying in Asian cultures. In Japan, it is known as kanashibari, jinfuri, which literally translates to bound with metal. The paralysis is seen as an act of powerful spirits or demons, yokai, who use invisible chains or spiritual pressure to hold the body captive. Victims describe a heavy pressure on their limbs or body, mirroring the physical feeling of atonia, but attributed to supernatural bonds. In China, the experience is guiyashen, or ghost pressing on the body. Here, the intruder is universally accepted as a ghost, a vengeful spirit, or a yin energy that seeks to steal the sleeper's breath or life force. The profound cultural acceptance of this interpretation often leads victims to seek spiritual cleansing or exorcism rather than medical help, reinforcing the belief that the experience is genuinely spiritual. Perhaps the most compelling cultural mirror comes from Nigeria, where the entity is the Ogun Oru, the night war. Victims, often students or young adults, describe a paralyzing sense of attack, often linked to spiritual warfare or the malevolent actions of enemies using dark magic. While the entity's precise form may vary, the core element of the intruder, the terrifying, crushing presence, is identical. The consistency of the three primary hallucinatory factors across these disparate global narratives, the intruder, the incubus, pressure, and the vestibular motor, feelings of floating or spinning, suggests a shared neural pathway of fear. The question remains, is this a mere coincidence of neurology, or is the human mind at its most vulnerable, tapping into an ancient collective image of fear that we all share, a dark evolutionary blueprint of helplessness? The neuroscience of fear, the amygdala's scream. To understand the terror of the night hag, we must venture into the very mechanism of fear within the human brain. Sleep paralysis is the ultimate neurological glitch, a critical failure in the brain's internal timing system. But the sheer, overwhelming terror it produces is not accidental. It is a full-scale activation of the brain's threat detection network, a system evolved over millions of years to ensure immediate survival. The key player in this terrifying scenario is the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure deep within the temporal lobe, often referred to as the brain's fear center. When the conscious mind awakens during atonia, the brain instantly detects the catastrophic disconnect. The mind is awake, but the body is unresponsive. This is a state biologically coded as extreme danger. The amygdala, perceiving this absolute helplessness as an immediate, life-threatening crisis, a predator has you pinned down, or you are trapped, goes into catastrophic overdrive. It bypasses all logical reasoning centers, the prefrontal cortex, and floods the body with adrenaline, cortisol, and other stress hormones. This neurochemical release is what creates the overwhelming, suffocating sense of panic and impending doom that defines the experience, making the victim believe they are moments from death. This primal alarm state is why the paralysis feels like a genuine mortal attack, rather than a mere dream state. The terrifying visual component, the shadowy intruder, is a direct side effect of this amygdala hyperactivation and the unique nature of the paralysis itself. Researchers hypothesize that the brain's parietal and temporal lobes, which are responsible for integrating sensory information and spatial awareness, are also in a state of confused semi-wakefulness. The brain, desperate to explain the feeling of weight on the chest, the incubus hallucination, and the feeling of being vulnerable, conjures a visual representation of the threat. This is a phenomenon known as threat-activated vigilance. The brain's natural tendency is to externalize fear, projecting the internal panic onto an external source. The shadow figure is the brain's quickest, most primal way to name the unnameable terror, the predator in the room. Crucially, the feeling of pressure or weight on the chest, the central feature of the incubus-succubus myth, is scientifically linked to the misfiring of the respiratory control centers. During REM sleep, breathing is shallower and irregular. When panic sets in during paralysis, the brain attempts to command the chest muscles to take a deep, life-saving breath. But the atonia prevents this. The resulting panicked, restricted breathing, the feeling of being suffocated, is interpreted by the desperate, hallucinating brain as a physical weight, an entity pressing down to steal the breath. This is why the universal cultural descriptions involve crushing, strangling, or pressing spirits. The folklore is simply translating a very specific neurochemical and physiological panic into a shared, ancient monster. Furthermore, the vestibular motor hallucinations, the feeling of floating, falling, spinning, or suddenly being violently yanked off the bed, are caused by the complete miscommunication between the vestibular system, balance, and the still paralyzed motor cortex. The mind is awake and ready to move, but the body refuses the command, creating a sensory conflict that the brain resolves by simulating motion. This adds another layer of profound disorientation, making the victim feel that their soul or spiritual self is being manipulated or dragged away by the malevolent presence. The sleep paralysis experience is thus a perfect, terrifying storm. A panicked, paralyzed body, a fear center screaming danger, and a confused sensory system creating a perfectly customized ancient monster to explain the impossible reality. The ancient lore and the spiritual warfare. The chilling consistency of the sleep paralysis experience across continents has cemented its place in nearly every major folklore and religious text, transforming a simple neurological event into a universal tale of spiritual warfare and demonic intrusion. Before neuroscience offered terms like atonia and amygdala hyperactivation, humanity relied on the spiritual and mythological to explain this terrifying, visceral phenomenon. These ancient tales offer a profound window into the shared subconscious fear of the night. The oldest and most pervasive narrative is that of the incubus and succubus. Originating in ancient Mesopotamian and Roman mythology, these entities were described as male, incubus, or female, succubus demons who would lie upon sleepers, often for sexual purposes, but always to steal the victim's energy or breath. The crushing weight reported by paralysis victims, the feeling of a heavy chest and restricted breathing, was direct physical evidence of the demon's presence. In the Middle Ages, the belief evolved, becoming heavily integrated into Christian theology. The incubus became a clear agent of Satan, responsible for tempting and tormenting mortals in their sleep. The terrifying reality for a medieval European was not a hallucination, but a genuine demonic attack sanctioned by the forces of hell. The female counterpart, the night hag, finds a special prominence in Germanic and Slavic folklore. Often depicted as a thin, withered old crone or witch, the hag, Mara in Slavic, which gives us the word nightmare, possesses the ability to leave her physical body and travel as a spirit. She would specifically target the vulnerable, entering homes through keyholes or cracks to sit on the sleeper's chest, literally riding them until they were exhausted or nearly suffocated. This cultural narrative perfectly captures the three core sensations of sleep paralysis: the paralysis, the crushing weight, and the presence of an evil, watching figure. The story of the hag offered a complete explanation for the unexplainable terror, providing both a name and a narrative for the silent, looming dread. In other traditions, the entity takes on a more predatory form. In Turkish culture, the phenomenon is known as karabasan, the dark presser. Karabasan is a dark jinni, a powerful supernatural being who enters the home and presses on the chests of sleepers, sometimes warning of future doom, but always paralyzing and terrifying its victims. The belief system provides ritualistic defenses against the Karabasan, such as sleeping with your hands outside the blanket or reciting specific prayers before sleep, reinforcing the community's attempt to exert control over the chaotic, frightening, and uncontrollable experience. Similarly, the Vietnamese call the experience bong je, which literally means pressed by a shadow. This shadow is often believed to be a vengeful spirit or the soul of someone recently deceased, making the paralysis an active spiritual confrontation rather than a passive event. The critical insight from these ancient lores is that they confirm the universality of the experience. They prove that for thousands of years, humans have been suffering the exact same terrifying psychological event, and their cultures have independently drawn the same conclusion. An evil entity is in the room and it wants to harm you. This cultural narrative, passed down through generations, subtly influences the modern experience. Even a scientifically literate individual, when paralyzed and terrified in the darkness, defaults to this ancient narrative, which the brain is perfectly wired to accept. The night hag may be a myth, but the fear she represents is deeply embedded in the human condition, making the attack an unsettling blend of neurology and inherited terror. The alien link and the Hat Man phenomenon. One of the most persistent and disturbing variants of the sleep paralysis intruder hypothesis lies far outside traditional folklore and neuroscience. The claim that these experiences are directly linked to alien abductions and the modern-day mystery of the Hat Man. While this may sound like pure fiction, the consistency between the early stages of a sleep paralysis attack and the reported sensory details of a supposed abduction is eerily precise, leading many researchers to believe the two phenomena share a common neurological root or a more unsettling external source. The sensory elements that blur the line between sleep paralysis and alien abduction reports are compelling. Abduction victims frequently report a feeling of being paralyzed upon waking, the inability to move or scream, and an overwhelming sense of dread, all core features of atonia and amygdala activation. Furthermore, the reports often include strong auditory hallucinations, buzzing, deep humming, or a low-frequency vibration, and vestibular motor hallucinations, a feeling of being lifted, floating above the bed, or being dragged through a doorway. The brain, struggling to process these conflicting signals, creates an elaborate narrative to rationalize the sensory chaos, transforming the shadowy figure into a modern, culturally relevant threat, the gray alien. The gray alien, with its large head, almond-shaped eyes, and slender body, is the contemporary successor to the night hag. It represents a fear of the unknown invader who has ultimate power over the paralyzed victim. In the paralyzed state, the brain's misinterpretation of pressure, sound, and stillness creates the perfect environment for the mind to construct an escape narrative that is both terrifying and compellingly real. For the victim, the experience is not a dream. It is the truth, driven by the absolute certainty of the threat detection network. The key scientific argument here is that the hallucination uses cultural symbols. In the past, a witch; today, an extraterrestrial. A more specific, unnerving modern entity that has emerged within the sleep paralysis narrative is the Hat Man. This is an increasingly reported variation of the classic shadowy intruder, distinguished by the fact that the figure is always wearing a specific style of fedora or wide-brimmed hat. Reports of the Hat Man are geographically widespread, occurring across North America, Europe, and Asia, yet the description is remarkably consistent. A tall, dark, silhouetted figure, standing silently at the foot of the bed, observing the paralyzed sleeper. Unlike the traditional night hag, the Hat Man often lacks any explicit motion. His terror is derived purely from his silent, unwavering observation and the profound sense of cold, malevolent intent he projects. What makes the Hat Man so compelling is that he does not fit neatly into any single established cultural folklore. He is a seemingly modern archetype of fear, yet his consistency points back to a shared neurological phenomenon. Sleep researchers suggest the hat may be a trick of light and shadow, where the brain, struggling to define the edges of a shadowy entity in a dark room, latches onto a common shape, but the psychological impact is undeniable. Is the Hat Man merely an updated psychological projection of the ancient Incubus? Or does this global consistency hint at something deeper? A collective subconscious fear evolving in real time? Or perhaps a terrifying shared encounter that science cannot fully rationalize? The question remains, why is a dark man in a fedora now the reigning king of our paralyzed nightmares? The exit strategy and the search for control. For those who regularly suffer from sleep paralysis, the terrifying episodes are not just a medical curiosity. They are a profound, recurring source of psychological trauma. The repeated experience of absolute helplessness and confrontation with a perceived malevolent entity can lead to chronic sleep anxiety or somnophobia, where the sufferer actively resists going to sleep for fear of the attack. For these individuals, the core of the quest shifts from understanding the phenomenon to finding an exit strategy, a way to break the paralysis and dispel the intruder. The primary medical advice for treating sleep paralysis focuses on sleep hygiene and addressing underlying stress and sleep disorders. Episodes are known to be strongly correlated with severe stress, erratic sleep schedules, like shift work, and sleeping on one's back. Simply regulating the sleep schedule, ensuring sufficient REM rest, and avoiding sleeping in the supine position, on the back, can drastically reduce the frequency of attacks. In cases of chronic debilitating episodes, doctors may prescribe specific antidepressants, like SSRIs, that can suppress REM sleep, thus reducing the opportunity for atonia to occur while the mind is awake. While these are effective medical solutions, they do little to address the terror of the experience itself. For sufferers, the search for control often leads to two major psychological techniques: lucid dreaming and focal point concentration. Lucid dreaming is the state where the sleeper becomes consciously aware they are dreaming and can manipulate the dream environment. Many experienced lucid dreamers have discovered that if they can successfully transition from the paralyzed state into a lucid dream, they can instantly dispel the hallucination. The shadowy figure, once terrifyingly real, vanishes when the conscious mind asserts control over the subconscious environment. The terror is replaced by power, transforming the nightmare into a controllable dreamscape. This process turns the paralysis from a passive entrapment into an active mental battleground, where the mind's assertion is the ultimate weapon against the intruder. The second, more immediate technique is focal point concentration, aimed at snapping the body out of atonia. Since the large muscles are paralyzed, the goal is to target the smallest, most difficult muscles to paralyze, the muscles around the eyes and the face, particularly the tongue. Victims are instructed to use every ounce of willpower to try to wiggle a single finger or toe, or rapidly move the eyes side to side. By concentrating all available neurological energy on a tiny, isolated movement, the victim can often generate enough sensory feedback to jolt the brain out of atonia, effectively hitting the reset button on the paralysis. This moment of successful movement, a twitch of the finger or a blink, is often described as the most exhilarating moment, instantly dissolving the shadowy figure and breaking the spell of the incubus. However, the final, most unsettling element remains the enduring belief in a non-scientific origin. Despite all the neurological and psychological explanations, a significant number of sufferers, particularly those with repeated and terrifying encounters, remain convinced that they are truly encountering something malevolent and external. For them, the terror is too palpable, the visual consistency too high, and the sense of genuine evil too profound to be dismissed as a simple chemical misfire. This final, subjective layer of belief ensures that the night hag, whether she is a neurological glitch or a genuine spirit, will continue to haunt the waking hours of countless victims, standing as a testament to the fact that the greatest horrors often lie not in the outside world, but within the mysterious, uncontrolled depths of the human mind. The unsettling conclusion and the evolutionary echo. The journey into the terror of sleep paralysis is ultimately a journey into the ancient mechanics of the human brain, but the unsettling questions remain. Is the night hag simply an unfortunate neurological side effect? Or is the brain's consistent generation of a single, malevolent, shadowy figure an echo of a terrifying, shared evolutionary memory? The science is compelling, yet the subjective reality of the experience, the profound sense of evil and impending death, continues to defy a purely clinical explanation. The most powerful theory attempts to merge the scientific with the evolutionary, It posits that the brain's instinctive reaction to paralysis and helplessness, regardless of the cause, is to activate an ancient threat detection script. Historically, the greatest threat to a sleeping early human was a predator, a mountain cat, a wolf, or a rival human, that would pin the victim down by sitting on their chest, precisely mirroring the feeling of the incubus. Since the victim couldn't move or see clearly, the brain defaulted to a shadowy humanoid predator archetype. This evolutionary theory suggests that the night hag is not a ghost or a demon, but a survival instinct misfiring, a deeply ingrained defensive reaction from our ancestors, triggered when the body fails to respond to the mind's desperate commands. In this view, the sleep paralysis intruder is the psychic echo of the prehistoric predator, a fear burned into our DNA. Yet for many researchers and sufferers, this explanation is incomplete. The phenomena of the Hat Man and the precise, terrifying visual details, the feeling of being watched and the overwhelming sense of specific malevolence suggest a complexity beyond simple misfiring. Some parapsychological theories propose that the state of sleep paralysis, being a profound bridge between the conscious and subconscious, may genuinely lower the veil between dimensions. They argue that the paralysis is not the cause of the entity, but the window that allows a genuine, subtle, low-level entity, a non-physical being or a thought form, to interact with the victim when their rational defenses are offline. While this realm remains outside verified science, the deep conviction of sufferers gives weight to the idea that the threat is external, not internal. The conclusion is an enduring, chilling paradox. Scientifically, sleep paralysis is a manageable, non-lethal condition. It is a predictable failure of the REM cycle, exacerbated by stress and poor sleep hygiene. Psychologically, it is the ultimate expression of human helplessness, where the mind turns on itself and creates a personalized monster. But spiritually, it remains the ancient, universal nightmare of the night hag, a figure so consistent across all cultures that it suggests a horrifying, shared human truth about what lurks in the darkness. Ultimately, the terror of the night hag is the terror of losing control over the self. It is a reminder that the boundary between the mind and the external world is thin, fragile, and easily shattered in the moments between waking and dreaming. The best defense is knowledge, but the human mind is complex, and sometimes the monsters we create are more real than the reality we wake up to. Thank you for joining Ghost Vibes on this journey into the terrifying secrets of the sleeping mind.